The Trump administration is reversing the Obama administration's approach towards Israeli settlements. U.S. public statements on settlement activities in the West Bank have been inconsistent over decades. In 1978, the Carter administration categorically concluded that Israel's establishment of civilian settlements was inconsistent with international law. However, in 1981, President Reagan disagreed with that conclusion and stated that he didn't believe that the settlements were inherently illegal. Subsequent administrations recognized that unrestrained settlement activity could be an obstacle to peace, but they wisely and prudently recognized that dwelling on legal positions didn't advance peace. However, in December 2016, at the very end of the previous administration, Secretary Kerry changed decades of this careful bipartisan approach by publicly reaffirming the supposed illegality of settlements. After carefully studying all sides of the legal debate, this administration agrees with President Reagan. The establishment of Israeli civilian settlements in the West Bank is not, per se, inconsistent with international law. Calling the establishment of civilian settlements inconsistent with international law hasn't worked. It hasn't advanced the cause of peace. The hard truth is, there will never be a judicial resolution to the conflict, and arguments about who is right and wrong as a matter of international law will not bring peace. This is a complex political problem that can only be solved by negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. The United States remains deeply committed to helping facilitate peace, and I will do everything I can to help this cause. The United States encourages the Israelis and the Palestinians to resolve the status of Israeli settlements in the West Bank in any final status negotiations.
El presidente Trump viajó a Texas a una visita a una planta de la Apple. Antes de irse, se pronunció, y quiero que escuchen este testimonio del embajador Sondland y luego lo que dijo el presidente con notas en la mano y todo sobre una de las conversaciones que sostuvieron.
Pero creo que simplemente le hice una pregunta cerrada. ¿Qué quiere de Ucrania? Sigo escuchando diferentes ideas y teorías y esto y lo otro. ¿Qué es lo que usted quiere?
What do you want from Ukraine? I keep hearing all these different ideas and theories. What do you want? What do you want? It was a very short and abrupt conversation that he had with me. They said he was not in a good mood. I'm always in a good mood. I don't know what that is. He just said, now he's talking about what my response. So he's going, what do you want? What do you want? I hear all these theories. What do you want, right? And now, here's my response that he gave, just gave. Ready? You have the cameras rolling? I want nothing. That's what I want from Ukraine. That's what I said. I want nothing. I said it twice. So he goes, he asked me the question, what do you want? I keep hearing all these things. What do you want? He finally gets me. I don't know him very well. I have not spoken to him much. This is not a man I know well. Seems like a nice guy, though. But I don't know him well. He was with other candidates. He actually supported other candidates. Not me. Came in late. But here's my response. Now, if you weren't fake news, you'd cover it properly. I say to the ambassador in response, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky, President Zelensky, to do the right thing. So here's my answer. I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing. Then he says, this is the final word from the President of the United States. I want nothing. Thank you, folks. Have a good time. I'm going to bed.
Las cámaras capturaron las notas que ustedes ven tenía el presidente Trump en la mano, donde dice no quiero nada, no quiero nada. Dígale a Zelensky, es Zelensky, que haga lo correcto. El presidente con notas después del testimonio de esta audiencia de juicio político, en donde, según el embajador Gordon Sondland, actuó por órdenes directas del presidente de los Estados Unidos para sus gestiones sobre lo que ocurrió. Y les repetimos, ¿cuál es el debate aquí? ¿Cuál es la discusión? los señalamientos de que el presidente Trump presionó a Ucrania para que anunciara investigaciones en contra de un posible rival político a cambio de reunirse con el presidente de Ucrania y de permitir que fueran entregados casi $400 millones en ayuda militar que esperaba ese gobierno. Es parte de la conversación en esta edición especial de Directo USA.
There were no big knockout punches landed by Boris Johnson on Jeremy Corbyn or Jeremy Corbyn on Boris Johnson. The debate was feisty. Perhaps the issue that got them going the most was the issue of the National Health Service. And at the core of the argument there, Jeremy Corbyn saying that Boris Johnson, under his Brexit deal, would open up the National Health Service to privatisation, a deal with the United States. The debate on that got really heated.
Full market access for US products to our National Health Service. You're going to sell our National Health Service out to the United States and Big Pharma.
This is an absolute invention. It is completely untrue. There are no circumstances whatever in which this government or any Conservative government will put the NHS on the table in any trade negotiation. Our NHS will never be for sale.
But that was perhaps the exception of the debate where they really got into one-on-one conversation. The moderator, Julie Etchingham, keeping them both carefully controlled on time. Perhaps it was Boris Johnson who had to be called in on time more often. There was a moment, however, where Julie Etchingham did get the two leaders to have a handshake and commit themselves to a better level of debate in Parliament with less acrimony. That was quite a moment in the programming. Also, another moment that really seems to stand out, less political. They were both asked what they thought of Prince Andrew's recent interview, television interview. On this, Jeremy Corbyn perhaps stole the edge a little.
Before we discuss Prince Andrew, I think we should discuss the victims that are there because of what Epstein was doing. And I think there are very, very serious questions that must be answered, and nobody should be above the law, but the primary position ought to be the proper treatment of those people who are victims of the most appalling behaviour by apparently Epstein and many others.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Johnson.
The issue of the union also came up, the relationship between England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Really nothing new breaking through there. On the issue of trust and leadership, both leaders there didn't seem to answer the questions head on. Indeed, both of them drawing a few laughs from the crowd at their answers. And when it was finally wrapping up, Jeremy Corbyn saying, vote for Labour, vote for hope, vote for change. Boris Johnson getting back to a theme that had needled all the way through the debate, and that was saying that Jeremy Corbyn wasn't clear if he was for leave or remain, and that issue kept coming up, and perhaps that will be one of the takeaway issues for the audience in this debate. But you have to look at it and say, very hard to say either one of them really sort of broke out of their normal appeal for their base and perhaps won over voters. But this is the first, what's going to be a series of such debates. Nick Robertson, CNN, Glasgow, Scotland.
Washington is on edge now that South Korea has ended a key intelligence sharing agreement with Japan. What started as a diplomatic and trade dispute between the two has now taken a military turn. Here's the reason Seoul gave for this new move that has Washington worried.
Japan created a grave change in the environment for bilateral security cooperation. Under this situation, we have determined that it would not serve our national interests to maintain an agreement we signed with the aim of exchanging military information, which is sensitive to security.
The U.S. had pushed for that intelligence sharing deal in the first place, making it easier to share data on North Korea and monitor China. Hours ago, the U.S. Secretary of State urged Japan and South Korea to find a solution.
We're disappointed to see the decision that the South Koreans made about that information sharing agreement. We were urging each of the two countries to continue to engage, to continue to have dialogue. There is no doubt that the shared interests of Japan and South Korea are important, and they're important to the United States of America, and we hope each of those two countries can begin to put that relationship back in exactly the right place.
When did President Zelensky announce that the investigation was going to happen? On page 14, you said this: was there a quid pro quo? Today's your opening statement. As I testified previously, with regard to a requested White House call, White House meeting, the answer is yes, that there needed to be a public statement from President Zelensky. When the chairman asked you about the security assistance dollars. You said there needed to be a public announcement from Zelensky. So I'm asking you a simple question. When did that happen?
Never did.
Never did. They got the call July 25th. They got the meeting, not in the White House, but in New York on September 25th. They got the money on September 11th. When did the meeting happen again?
Never did.
You don't know who was in the meeting?
Which meeting are you referring to?
The meeting that never happened. Who was in it? You know how you know how Zelensky announced it? Did he tweet it? Did he do a press statement? Did he do a press conference? You know how that happened? I mean, you got all three of them wrong. They get the call, they get the meeting, they get the money. It's not 2 + 2, it's 0 for 3. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. And you told Mr. Castor that the president never told you that the announcement had to happen to get anything. In fact, he didn't just not tell you that, he explicitly said the opposite. The gentleman from Texas just read it. You said to the President of the United States, "What do you want from Ukraine?" The President, "I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to do what he ran on." What did he run on, Ambassador Sondland?
Transparency.
And dealing with corruption, right?
That's right.
Now, they also seem to say that, well, they got the money. The money may have been conditioned, but they got the money. Yes, they got caught. They got caught. Now, they still don't have the White House meeting. They made no statement. They got no meeting. The statement on the investigations was the condition to get the meeting. They didn't make the statement. They got no meeting. But they got caught. You're aware, aren't you, Ambassador, that 2 days before the aid was lifted, this inexplicable aid was lifted, Congress announced it was investigating this scheme. You're aware of that, aren't you, Ambassador?
I am now, yes.